when you add explosive players to the roster, it not only helps them as players to have an impact, but it also helps the rest of the guys. I really do think you have to spread the ball around. Typically, in games that you win and play good offense, when you look at the stat sheet at the end of the game, there's probably 6 or 7 guys that caught passes. There's probably 2 or 3 guys that ran the ball. And I really do think if you're going to play good offense, you need threats outside, inside, and in the backfield.
That was offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur on how spreading the ball around can lead to success. And you guys, when I think of spreading the ball around and successful teams, I think of the 2013 Denver Broncos, the best offense in NFL history, which had 5 players with over 500 yards receiving. With all due respect to the teams between now and then, is it safe to say that this is the most stacked Broncos offense that we've seen since 2013?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it is. You got me thinking about that team in 2013, which I covered. I've been around the Broncos since 2004, and it was just amazing, just weapon after weapon that you had, guys that you had to wait on, like a Julius Thomas, right? Because 2 years because of an ankle problem, and then he exploded onto the scene. Of course, we all remember that week 1 against Baltimore. That was awesome. And so you think now you've got not 1 but 2 tight ends. You've got not 1 but 2 running backs. You've got maybe 1, 2, 3 wide receivers. We're going to get to that. Like, it's just, you think of the weapons that are falling. Hey, Drew Lock, you dropped something. It's weapons falling out of his pocket. I mean, the guy's just stacked, and we truly haven't seen this since back then. So that's a nice pull, because it was special back in 2013 for the offense, and this Broncos offense, maybe not as special. We're not saying, 600 plus points or 55 touchdowns from Drew Lock, but should be very, very exciting for the Broncos this year.
And you had the sheriff running the show, though. I mean, this is a guy going into his first season as a starter. We have to be realistic. But the point I bring up is when you have all these weapons, it falls on the quarterback and what they can do to spread the football around, get the ball to who's open. And this isn't the Broncos, but I'll bring up the Houston Texans because I talked to Brandon Cooks recently and wrote a piece about them spreading the football around as an offense. They believe it's addition by subtraction, losing DeAndre Hopkins. Cooks told me, and remember the people he's played under, Sean McVay and Josh McDaniels, 2 pretty good offensive minds. And he said when you have a lot of different weapons, it is harder for a defense to game plan as opposed to them planning to stop one amazing weapon, which was DeAndre Hopkins. So the idea of having multiple guys that a defense has to prepare for should make their week longer, and they only have a certain number of hours in the week to prepare for you, and you can give the ball to a lot of different players. That idea is around the NFL in a lot of places. The Broncos are built for that now. And now it's up to Drew Lock to spread the ball to those guys and get the ball to whoever wins their one-on-one, really.
James and Cecil both just said it. I mean, the more weapons you have, the easier it is to identify what defenses are doing and how to neutralize those tactics. Think about this year. I'm a little hesitant to compare to 2013 just because that was such a great year. James just mentioned Peyton Manning, the MVP year.
Don't take the wind out of my sails here, Matt.
All right, fine. I will play
Alexis
along.
is like Colin Cowherd.
I know.
Yeah, right.
Him and I are best friends, truly.
You think about Hamler and Jeudy, though, forcing teams to shade deep. I mean, Fant and Gordon are going to be open underneath it. I think when you stop one thing, it's going to be harder to stop the other weapons on offense. And I think that we just mentioned it. The Broncos are going to have a lot of different options. It's going to be a matter of whether or not Drew Lock can get there, get in the playbook, and really utilize them to the fullest of their effect.
All right, well, we all saw, including Chad Johnson, that video of Jerry Jeudy doing that footwork drill. We saw KJ Hamler cutting a rug. And Ocho Cinco was actually the first to point out that this team has 3 number 1 wide receivers. We've all talked about this team now having 2, but never included Hamler in that conversation. So is Chad Johnson right? Does this team have 3 number 1s?
Ocho Cinco upped the ante, that's for sure.
Yeah, he did.
And it makes you think, because if KJ Hamler was a first-round pick, nobody would have been surprised. Nobody. Now, the Eagles, instead of taking Jalen Reagor, whatever, name any sort of team. Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers, that could have been KJ Hamler. He has that talent. He has that speed. A lot of scouts I talked to would compare him to Marquise Hollywood Brown. Well, guess what? That was a first-round pick. That's a number 1 receiver for the Ravens when he's healthy. So Hamler, I'm kind of warming up to it, man. I'm kind of warming up to the idea that it's not 1, it's not 2. It's, in fact, 3 number 1s here.
I'm like Mr. Pump the Brakes guy. I feel like I'm a negative Nancy
Negative
here.
Nancy.
But I mean, like, 2 of those 3 are rookies. Like, what do you expect a rookie wide receiver with this off season that we're going through coming in and making a massive impact? Yeah, I think their talent allows this offense to be able to do a lot of different things, because you're going to have to respect the speed. You're going to have to respect what they assume they're bringing to the table on the field, but they're going to have to go out and prove it. I mean, we look at some of these other teams that have 2 unbelievably proven wide receivers. You go down to Tampa Bay and look who Tom Brady's top 2 targets are. It's a different situation than when you're going with Courtland Sutton, who we all agree is on the verge of being a really, really great player in this league. There's 2 rookies, and it's hard to make an impact as a rookie, as a wide receiver. You're hoping that they can. And I think if you look at the way they're set up, they have a very good chance to succeed. I just look at this down the road. This is going to be a great conversation in 2 to 3 years when you're going, look at these 3 receivers we have. And Drew Lock has these years under his belt. I think everybody's going to be going nuts about this group in a couple of seasons. I think we can be excited right now, but at the same time, we have to be a little bit more realistic about these guys all being number 1 wide receivers.
Before we go, Matt, I got to ask you, are there any cons to having 3 number 1s?
Only if they do the same thing, right? I think each of these guys' skill sets really offers something different. Sutton, we know he's a master of the 50-50 ball. We've just talked about Hamler's speed. Jeudy, to borrow a baseball reference, is a 5-tool guy. He seems to do everything really, really well. So if you have 3 guys that all do the same thing well, it would be an issue, but that's not the case here.